Briefcase and Side Jobs are the two collections of Dresden Files short stories we have available to us, the fans. And wow, was this an interesting read leading into Peace Talks. It was the perfect little satiation until I had Peace Talks sent to me, and now I can dive right on into that, and I'll have a review for you tomorrow, the release day of Peace Talks. But before I get into the review of these two collections, I also want to say I just started a podcast with a very good friend of mine, Bobby O'Donnell, and I'll have that linked down below if you'd like to check it out and give it a listen on your preferred podcast platform. It's not a fantasy podcast. It is a general fiction, what have you kind of discussion. And we're just going to do an overview of whatever we've indulged ourselves in a bi-weekly schedule. And I'm really looking forward to it. So go ahead and check that out if you want to see our thoughts on a movie called The Invitation. It was not great, but had some interesting aspects to it, and we go a full walkthrough review. But let's go ahead and get into these two Dresden short story collections. I was originally going to break this into like, which one did I like more? Because I thought they'd be very like, oh, this is the Briefcase ones, this is the Side Jobs ones. But really, they just kind of feel like mishmash collections to me. They all kind of randomly take place throughout the series at different points. There's not really a like cohesion to why one short story would be over here and another over there, at least not that I picked up on. I did binge these back to back, so maybe I missed something because I got through them really quickly because I binge read the crap out of Dresden whenever I get into it. But no, this isn't like a one versus the other. It's more just look into each short story on their own. And I was very impressed by what Jim Butcher accomplished here with most of these short stories because they weren't all perfect. What I will say though is many of them were outstanding. When you have a short story, you kind of have to have like a simple mission in my experience as a reader that you're trying to accomplish. You can't do a lot in a very short amount of pages. And these ranged from like really short stories to a solid chunk where there's actually like a full little arc going on. But for me, every single one accomplished what it was clearly setting out to do, whether it's reframing the relationship between Dresden and Thomas, exploring the ramifications of changes on certain characters. Every single one left me feeling something, left me with an impression. And that's really important. I'm going to get into a few of my favorites here and discuss those as well as my least favorite as well. But before I do that, I will have to give out a spoiler warning because this does take place at random points throughout the series. So there's going to be information that's just like not there for you Dresden fans that aren't caught up. So I'll say overall, definitely worth a read. Kind of ranks up in the upper tier area for my overall like Dresden enjoyment in terms of like the books. In general, some of again, the different short stories. So some of them rank pretty high and some of them rank like a little bit lower. Not like consistently bad at all. I would say more consistently good than bad. But let's go ahead and talk about some spoilers here. I'll just pick out some of my favorite short stories from Briefcase and Side Jobs and do a little discussion because I know you guys have been wanting some more in-depth, detailed Dresden discussion. Let's talk about that carnival. Because Jim Butcher did something very evil here for us, the fans. And in the introduction, where he's actually talking about writing this, we have him talking about how he was cackling writing this because he knows how evil it is. And you're right, because Dresden and Murph have been doing this dance for so long. And finally, we see them like take the step in, but it's because they're under a frickin' you're a jerk. Having them basically be compulsed to the point where they are actually taking the romantic steps that the fans have been dying for them to take and admitting the feelings they've been having and then pulling the rug out and being like, nah, actually, no, is so mean. And this was actually like my favorite short story because it clearly is like Jim messing with his fans in a pretty entertaining way and also more directly and bluntly addressing the feelings we have between these two more directly than I think we ever have in the series. It's also kind of my least favorite though, because it did the least in terms of developing these characters, doing something new, something big for them. But it's still like, oh, damn it, Jim, you got me. You know what I mean? It's got like, I love it because that I really don't like hold it up in a high regard because it's not doing anything really impressive to me as a short story. So there's kind of a weird balance there, and it's how I genuinely feel. I do want to talk about the Thomas perspective story here, where he's working to kind of pull one over on Dresden's eyes. And it's a little bit of maybe actually entering like the ludicrous level of crazy here. Like, there's a lot of just kind of stuff happening, and Thomas pulls a really strange, like, I'm just gonna lean into it kind of thing, where his face is changed to look like someone who's been framed for a child thing, and then he just, like, instead of trying to get, like, fixed, he finds Bob, and he's like, actually, let's keep it like this, and I'm going to just roll with it and try and get Dresden to get out of this situation without ever entirely realizing what's going on. And to me, that's just like, it's a little too crazy. I know, as I was talking about my favorite ones, I really like this one because it showed how much Thomas loves Dresden, which has been a thing that's kind of been back and forth in this series of, like, I know Thomas cares about Dresden a lot, but it's how much. And here we really see that there is a deep love that he feels for his family, and it's great to see that. But the plot itself was kind of back and forth there for me. The Bigfoot ones here as well were definitely the more middle ground. I liked the one that was earlier on in the timeline where Dresden first gets introduced to Bigfoot and saves, or, you know, helps his kid without getting violent. That was well done. But the one after that, I kind of didn't love. But my favorite ones, let's get into that now. Okay, I've kind of just done the ones. I enjoyed Thomas's birthday, probably in the top 3 for me here. It was kind of a simple story. It's just Dresden and Molly going to deliver a present for Thomas, and then the Black Court shows up. But talk about stakes kind of right away. I mean, you're going to bring the Black Court in for a Dresden novel or a story, then that's okay. Oh shit, stuff's happening. Cool. Granted, it's like, you know, an inexperienced, young, dumb Black Court vampire, but still. And I also just have a soft spot for Molly being involved in a story like this as well, and her progression is actually a really great showcasing to see how she's rapidly developed as a character. That was actually probably, in general, one of my biggest takeaways here, is just seeing how much everyone around Dresden has developed and evolved as a character, because I've heaped praise on Dresden's evolution. So that's one of my favorite character evolutions in all of fantasy, again and again, but the short stories for me really just hit home harder than ever just how well Jim has also handled developing these side characters. So let's talk about Molly as a whole, because there's this story where it's a little bit earlier on in her career, and then we go all the way to a point where she is at, you know, full-on post, you know, her being involved in the Winter Court. And seeing that dynamic, seeing everything she's now having to deal with, pulling back the mystery was hard hitting. I mean, that was, man, she has it worse than I even thought. And I thought she had it real bad. Seeing her involuntarily brutalize, I mean, there's no other way to put it, really brutalize this person she was working with. Wow. The White Court's now getting involved and going to see the actual direct results of this child, as they still probably see her, they let go. And that's going to be, I'm assuming in the future, a point of conflict for Dresden that he's going to have thrown back in his face, where look at this apprentice that you were supposed to look after and did this to a wizard. Like, that's big. And that's something that I cannot imagine won't be brought up and thrown in Dresden's face. That one, oof, I felt bad for Molly. You know, she's a character we've seen go from a kid who is just way in over her head to one of the most badass, capable characters of the whole series, while simultaneously struggling to keep her head above water, because while she's gotten to the point where she could certainly stand in any situation where she used to be, now she has gone so into the deep end that it feels like we're kind of losing her, you know what I mean? But this story was like a little glimpse into how far gone she's really at, and man, it's far. I mean, she's in this Winter Court stuff, and there's no coming back. I also want to mention the story where she kind of is going in to rescue Thomas, because according to the intel she's been getting, he has been taken, but unfortunately she is misled. It's all a ruse! And, you know, she figures that out to just basically be taken advantage of. But seeing her in that situation where I was always just thinking, like, how would have Dresden handled this? Would Dresden have been able to figure out it was kind of a lie, or would he have walked in as well? Because, of course, Molly puts herself down and is constantly having thoughts about how Dresden wouldn't make the mistakes she does. You know, we know that Dresden makes mistakes. She just kind of idolizes him. And so having this story where we really get, like, all the phases of Molly very clearly shown to us here, and I really appreciated that. She's such an interesting character, and if there's going to be a sequel series to Dresden, I hope it follows her after we we move on from the Dresden Files, maybe we'll get the Molly Files. Side Jobs ends very notably with the retelling of a story on repeat from multiple perspectives. We have A Day at the Zoo with Dresden, Maggie, his daughter, and their dog Mouse, which is still probably the best name for a Mastiff that you can have. And I'm sorry, Mouse is a Leon Burger, the kind of dog that I had growing up that I helped like rescue and stuff. Mouse is a Leon Burger. You can fight me about that all day. Google Leon Burger and tell me that dog is not the perfect mouse. That's just my thoughts on there. I enjoy the concept and the execution. It's just, I think I might need to actually go back and, surprisingly, I don't think I've ever said this on the channel before, and reread these short stories that are interconnected again to better understand the interconnection of these short stories. That's a very specific scenario, but I think I might, because there's a lot happening here that I feel like I might not have picked up on my first time through. And unfortunately, I did have to burn through these really quickly because I was trying to get ready for Peace Talks, and I got Peace Talks sent to me earlier, and I thought I would. So now I'm like, okay, now I gotta play catch up and get ready for Tuesday. The Dresden's dynamic with his daughter, right? This is gonna be one of the things that we, the fans, are gonna be able to speculate on, and we're not gonna know where Maggie ends up. And this is what the story, like, that's all I really took away from this, is what is Maggie going to end up being? Where is she going to end up being when the Dresden Files ends? That inspired me to really care and think about that. I haven't even mentioned the mob story. I haven't mentioned Michael or the mob yet. We'll get there. Hold up. My prediction, though, after reading this zoo story where Dresden ends up helping a out-of-control warlock, because his daughter talks him into it, and we get to see just how intelligent and powerful this child might be coming up to be. I'm convinced Dresden will die now. I don't know why. I don't know. I mean, I haven't even started Peace Talks as of recording this, but I, in my gut, have a feeling Dresden's going to end up dead. And we will see some combination of Thomas and the Michael family looking after Maggie. But I just, deep down, don't feel that Dresden will live through the Dresden Files. I do think Murph will. I don't think Jim's cruel enough to kill off Murph. A lot of things I'm picking up that show that we're entering the final stages of Dresden's existence as a character. That's what I'm feeling in Colin. I don't know why the zoo story made me so sure Dresden's gonna die, but the zoo story makes me think Dresden's gonna die. All right, so let's go ahead and jump over to the Marcone story, the Mafia story, where we get to see in his head. I was reading it wrong. I was under the impression that Marcone is a good man in extremely bad circumstances. And I don't know why I kept that in my head, because several times throughout the series we're shown that Marcone is willing to do some awful stuff. But the Marcone short story really cements that he is a bad guy. He's not the worst. He has some form of lines that he won't cross. But this short story opens with him executing people to send a message. And I think it's because we haven't really directly seen him do something as brutal and been in his head like we are in this short story. I wanted him to have like a more redeeming side to him than we're shown in this short story, even though we are shown that he has some kind of conscience at some point. I still believed he was better than what we're given here. And turns out, no. Marcone really is a high-functioning sociopath. There's not anything there that's going to like let him turn around and suddenly be like, I've been nice this whole time, which wasn't ever going to be the case. But in my head, I just had this like, I want him to be good. I don't know why. I kind of want him to be good. He's most certainly not, though. And it was fascinating watching him have this dance with the supernatural and seeing how well he handles himself as a mortal man going up against these larger things. I mean, he's now involved in this treaty, this power dynamic, and he's called upon for these duties that he must now service for. And seeing how well he handled them, because it also became so apparent of how smart he is and how much he actually really disdains Dresden. I don't know, like in my head I had convinced myself like he doesn't really hate Dresden. They're frenemies in a way. They're frenemies. No, they're not. No, they're not at all. And I was totally wrong there. So, all right, I just wanted it to be true, but it's not true. Yeah, that was one of the most, like in terms of politics, probably the best politic moment from any of these short stories was this mafia, carrying out these grander supernatural related tasks because that's the position Marcone has put him and his people in. So that was just fun for that. And then you also get to know Marcone. I don't think jumping into any of these characters' heads was ever bad. I liked getting these new angles, even though I was pretty nervous about it. And then finally, I want to talk about when we sit with Butters and we get some with Michael. Those ones didn't leave as big an impact. The Butters one, just because I find that situation with Butters to be a bit too much, similar with the Thomas thing I talked about, where he's like pulling a double trick on Dresden. The Butters thing as well, I'm like, this is a bit too much for me. It's a bit jumping the shark, not totally, not really, but a little and kinda. And then the Michael stuff, I just didn't get anything new from him because, well, Michael is an amazing, badass, super character. There's not a whole lot more there to learn, right? Because he's just this amazing, nice guy. So this story where Dresden's watched over him and his family and, all this stuff, I just didn't get anything new from the Michael clan or his family clan because, I know everything there, and that one was more of just like it's fun. It's none of these are bad. Like at no point was I unsatisfied. I was actually really surprised at how much I enjoyed many of these. But yeah, those are my ranty, rambly thoughts on this. Overall, I definitely enjoyed Briefcase more than Side Jobs, pretty substantially. I think Briefcase had the better selection of short stories as a whole, but they're definitely both worth reading for Dresden fans. And I can't really throw a rating on here though, because it's a bunch of different stories, so I can't, throw a number on all these different guys. I'm just gonna say Daniel Greene, seal of approval. Wah-ha! For both. Good job. Quack-wham. That's the official rating here. And let me know what you thought of the Dresden Files short stories in the comments down below. Did you think they were worth reading or not? Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Peace. And of course, I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreons, Michael Wakalski, Jared Milroy, John Patrick Alexander, and Carlos Justin. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you're having a kick-ass start to your week.